And it really evokes an image of Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill every time because that's what you're supposed to do after high school. You're supposed to just find the right boulder and push it up the hill. And I have seen this incredible rebellion against this and this shift from, for one, we don't have the kind of money our parents did to buy condos and vacation places and homes and properties. And it seems a lot more desirable to just own a van and to know that there's plenty of public land and places that we can go to enjoy and to enjoy our life now instead of waiting to enjoy our life. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying. I'm here to share with you the beautiful transmissions from the walls of my cavernous heart and to witness the great frequency shift that we are moving into as a collective and the beautiful deep work that we are doing as we glide into the age of Aquarius. This is the Liminal Frequencies podcast. Let's go. Hello, beautiful creatures. Thank you for making this part of your experience. Now, I had way too much to share about Pluto and this process, and it feels like a massive closing ceremony that we've been going through. And the journey that I had to California was just super helpful in me processing that and getting my body and my mind and my spirit to the other side of it. And so today I want to dive a little bit deeper into that journey and how it unfolded for me. And we can start to bridge the gap between this Pluto and Capricorn and Pluto and Aquarius and where we're headed, what direction we're going. So I pulled a card for this from the archetypes deck from Kim Kranz, and I don't mean to scare you. The card I pulled is Apocalypsis. So let's see what it says. Apocalypsis indicates a particularly painful time, one that unfolds when two disparate dynamics occur simultaneously, pulling the psyche in seemingly opposite directions. The first is a lifting of the veil. This means truths that have been kept in the dark are revealed, seen, and unearthed. No matter how relieving it is to witness them come into light, an element of despair and grief follows. The second dynamic is the regeneration that comes from the wreckage of the revealed truth. The old narrative breaks and a new story forms. Apocalypse's energy is similar to a forest fire's devastation for the sake of regeneration. The veil lifts and we see who and what has been hiding. From the nakedness of the truth, a child is born. Have faith in the process. Hold on to your center. That is the only way. And yeah, it's so powerful what we're going through. And I feel that a lot has been shed with relationships, with work dynamics, with business partnerships in order for us to balance the scales so that we can move into a time where we're coming at it from our center, we're warriors, we're unraveling what we need to move forward and create. So for a little bit of grounding, Thich Nhat Hanh, how to connect. An orchestra without a conductor. In our brain, a multitude of neurons are communicating with each other, interacting to produce thoughts, feelings, and ideas. But no one neuron is the director. It's like an orchestra without a conductor or a beehive with all the bees working together. The queen bee isn't the leader. Her only duty is to produce the next generation of bees. Looking into our body, we see a multitude of cells working together, but there's no boss. A sangha, a community of people practicing mindfulness, concentration, and insight together, is like a beehive with everyone working together in harmony. You guys, when I read this, I imagine a bunch of people coming together and meditating and creating pyramids, raising these pyramids into the sky, I just picture a society that's decentralized, that's based on love, everybody holding that frequency and vibration of love so that we can move forward. And just to really quickly, I want to share a poem I wrote. Love holds me here, and love brings me the key. Love walks me home, and love waits for me. Love is a vessel of infinite oneness. Love is a vessel that holds us. To love you have come, and to love you shall return. And sometimes I believe that the archetype is showing me more of what I need to hear than what I really want to hear. It can be kind of like a tarot. If anybody's familiar with tarot, it can be a little harsher than a soul card or an oracle deck. But I want to balance that fear with love because our revolution can be a revolution of the heart. And I hope you enjoy my episode. And I'm so excited to see you on the other side. Tell me, where do you do your shadow work? Where did you plan your Plutonian vacation? Do you go into the light, into the rainbows? Or do you do your shadow work in the darkness, in the swamp, in the morgue? I recently heard about this meditation where you observe death, where you sit in a cemetery or watch bodies being cremated and meditate on the transformation and what it brings. Wow, you guys must think I'm very morbid, but as my first solo episode, I think I do bite off quite a bit more than I could chew. And the 16-year journey or whatever it is from Capricorn, Pluto, moving through that sign is definitely a lot of ground to cover. So let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about why Pluto is still actually valid, even though it's technically not a planet. At least a couple times, people told me Pluto's not a planet. I said, well, that is about the most Pluto in Capricorn thing someone can say. I actually looked it up, and Pluto was classified as not actually a planet, and it was about 2006. So we were in Pluto in the sign of Sagittarius, in this sort of naivety that we were moving through. So I thought it was so funny that this article came out in 2020 from Corinne Lane. I didn't even look for it. It was just part of my reading about Pluto and astrology. Recently, I received this email from a reader. I suggest you update the ruling planet zodiac sign chart because Pluto isn't a planet anymore. Are you guys kidding me? So here is an article that addresses that concern from several people actually that mention Pluto's not a planet. As humans, we are part of a universal field consisting of an ebb and flow of energy. This ebb and flow of energy is regulated by any bit of matter floating in space. Any piece of matter floating in space causes a ripple in the energy flow. If it's composed of matter and even gas is a state of matter, then it matters. All matter matters. She mentioned, however, as Stephen Forrest has so brilliantly noted, classification of planet itself is arbitrary. Mercury, Venus, and Mars are hard little rocks, while Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus and Neptune are gas giants. According to the International Astronomical Union, the term planets includes hard little rocks and gas giants, and everyone seems okay with this. In addition, just about everyone understands that when astrologers include the sun and moon, when we say planets, we do so only for convenience. Of course, we know that the sun and moon are luminaries rather than planets. for convenience, when we say things like planets and the signs, we are talking about the planets and the sun and the moon, and sometimes even Chiron, an asteroid. All of those things being important, all of those things having gravity, right? There is still some component of matter that's creating a pole, that's creating black body radiation, and it has an effect. So, just to get that out of the way, I also believe that something that's coming in strongly right now is the egregore. The egregore is a collective entity. In esotericism, the term egregore has been used to denote a group mind or collective consciousness of a religious community. As Renee Guénon said, the collective in its psychic as well as its corporeal aspects is nothing but a simple extension of the individual, and thus has absolutely nothing transcendent with respect to it, as opposed to spiritual influences, which are of a wholly different order. Interesting how when we start getting into the group mind and the collective and the whole world of social media and how people feel about this election, how people feel about leadership, we start to create an energy collectively that isn't actually fully fitting of the reality itself, of the people itself that are involved. And so I found that interesting that we often take on a different energy than we actually are based on the group thought. And as we move into Aquarius, it's so fitting that this can merge, and we really need to take a deeper look at this of how social media and how AI and how this comes into this. I saw this interesting video last night, and I wish that I didn't go into the realm of social media and looking at things, because it started to make me feel like the collective of what's going on is a lot worse than it actually is when I tune into the flowers and the birds and the trees. And it was President Trump drinking a cup of ayahuasca in the Amazon jungle because he thought it would give him some edge. And it was a completely AI generated video. And it followed the thread of him having this spiritual awakening and going to India and giving up all of his possessions and just wanting to help people and spread the light. So I think it's so interesting with AI, where AI actually can create these alternative realities. And it's going to be such a trip. We're realizing that we are in a simulation on some levels, that we are creating our own collective realities. We're creating our own individual realities, which are separate from the collective realities. And the dissonance between all of those realities and what it's creating now. It's a lot to digest and a lot to unpack. But let's go back to this journey through Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn, which started in 2008, started with the financial crash, these crises of people who had power, people were in control, people that were getting bailed out versus smaller businesses that weren't getting bailed out, and how this played into the world stage, how we are still in it. We're still in this dominant masculine paradigm, and how there's a lot that is wanting to awaken and a lot that's wanting to come out of this. I'm going to read a little bit more about Capricorn in Stephen Forrest's incredible book of Pluto. If you want to dive deep into Pluto, this is a great place to start. Knowing what we want and getting what we want arise from very different centers in human consciousness. To know a desire, we must melt into it, allow it to surface, savor it, feel it, explore it in our imaginations. It is a soft process. In old speak, it is a feminine process. Of course it is. Stephen, leader empowered by the wise, self-aware knowledge of what we truly want, the psyche hardens itself, the eyes narrow to slits, the mind becomes calculating, and we go get it, a masculine process in ancestral speech. Capricorn excels at the latter process, making things happen, but its blind spot lies in the former process, the softening into the wise heart of desire. In simple words, Capricorn may not know what it really wants. Worse, it might then begin building pyramids for which it has no real use or desire. As this empty process unfolds, the lack of expected satisfactions only pushes Capricorn harder. We see the workaholic, the perpetual delayer of gratification, the obsessive builder of bank accounts, accumulator of victories, attainer of lonely heights, or the stern, joyless devotee of the spiritual path. Capricorn, when it descends into its own shadow, takes inappropriate control over others, enlisting them in its own obsessive projects. Wow. And right now, I am feeling the pull of my Capricorn moon and this desire to be productive no matter what. I have 2 book writing projects, and one of them, a third project, is more of a tarot project. And I'm trying to unpack, why is it so important for this to happen? And why is it so difficult to just let go and let that happen in divine timing? And it really evokes an image of Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill every time, because that's what you're supposed to do after high school. You're supposed to just find the right boulder and push it up the hill. And I have seen this incredible rebellion against this and this shift from, for one, we don't have the kind of money our parents did to buy condos and vacation places and homes and properties. And it seems a lot more desirable to just own a van and to know that there's plenty of public land and places that we can go to enjoy our life now instead of waiting to enjoy our life. So I want to continue on my journey that I began in the quite grimness of the cadaver lab and all of the beauty, all of the lessons, all of the weird feelings in my body in being in that environment and feeling my own decay process happening, feeling my own microbes rebelling, being in this physical body that I have to remind myself, you're still alive, you're still here, keep going. And as I packed up, I threw away all of the clothes that I was wearing in the lab. I threw away the Goodwill shoes that I bought in Medford. In Sacramento, I was basically staying in my van, sleeping in my van, cooking meals in my van. So every day that we had lunch, I changed my clothes, went back and had some relaxation time before going back into the grind of the cadaver lab. And so many wonderful people there, brought so much lightness to it. And I'm sure in like 10 years, I'll be like, that was great. What are you talking about? That was incredible. I feel that it's such a spiritual experience to be in a temple like that of the body. And for me, if I was to become a teacher or a TA in that, I know I would bring a lot more of the mystical aspect to it and the reverence for the body. And this just wasn't the context or the container for it. But as I packed up, I got ready to go to my niece's 1-year-old birthday. And what incredible gift to see somebody grow, to see a new life, right? Death and then rebirth. And I spent that evening with my parents and my sister-in-law and my brother and my niece, and got to see that. I got to do a cold plunge, which is literally the one thing me and my brother can relate to is cold plunges are awesome. To just feel this reawakening of my body or reawakening of my cells. And I did shower between the cold plunge and the lab. But I went to this place where I'm spending time with family, and it was a lot of one-on-one time with my mother. And I just got to know how this Capricorn has been boring holes in me, this energy of productivity, of creation. And I had the pleasure and the honor of being able to set some boundaries with my mom and to say, I know you think this thing is a good idea, that it will make me more productive, that it will help me with my career. But actually, I am sticking to what really turns me on and really drives me in my career. And that's okay. That's where I want to be. I want to be chasing after this beauty, this joyfulness, this blissfulness in my work. And I don't want to be just pushing the empty boulder up the hill because you have to work hard. And that brings me to wanting to talk a little bit about Saturn. Saturn is the father figure in the sky daddy, if you will. And Saturn is a ruler of Capricorn as well. And so Saturn has a huge role in all of these processes, in that we are moving through kind of a patriarchal time, and that this is just a phase that we're moving through, that this is going to shift. And Saturn can be this, in many Vedic astrology say it's about karma, a master of karma or endings, karmic endings. And what I want to put a spin on it to say that it's more about dharma. It's more about the individual's duty being fulfilled in observance of custom or law or spiritual law. It's about what you really are drawn to do. And many of you have experienced your Saturn return already. Many of you that are babies listening to this have experienced your Saturn return, and it occurs when you're around between 27 and 30, maybe closer to 28 or 29. And it's when you have this calling and it really changes your life. You have this restriction or this teacher that comes in and tells you, oh, like that's not the right way. You might lose your job. Or like me, and this was kind of a long process. There were multiple jobs, and currently I have no jobs, which is just so incredible. I work for myself. And this for me was a journey of fulfilling of my own career and moving away from, it was almost like rising out of the ashes, the phoenix, in working in an energy that wasn't supportive to me, working for people that weren't doing it for the right reasons. I didn't feel that good energy flowing through me, and I could feel it in my body. I could feel it in my wrists. And also in relationships, if the relationship isn't fulfilling the highest destiny of your career, then why are you in this? And so it's been really heavy in the last couple of years, since March 7th of 2023. If you can think back to that time and what shifts were going on. And Saturn will stay in Pisces until May 25th of next year. And then it'll retrograde, I believe, back to Aquarius until September, and it will exit Pisces February 14th of 2026. So ironically, if Saturn is in Pisces, is in some way affecting your relationship, your communication, your desire to move forward with that, it hopefully for you will be a good Valentine's Day or a good start to that. And I was feeling this. Pisces represents death, transformation, endings, transcending. And so Saturn moving into Pisces brought us into this really deep time of grief and ending for what we were experiencing. For me, this created a huge timeline shift around how I was operating in relationship, and said, hey, you need to relook at this and reevaluate this, and let's just go ahead and rewire all of these patterns. And this affects Pluto as well, because Pluto is in Capricorn. And so there is this heavy energy now of Saturn kind of weighing down on these things. And not quite allowing us to break out of this cycle. Looking back at my 20s and getting to know other women who have experienced this as well, it feels like there's often this aspect of Saturn, an aspect of protection, an aspect of self protection that occurs. And it happens when, regardless of whether you're male or female, we often can't create the boundaries that we need to for other people. And so it results in us getting a cold, getting a flu. For women, it often involves us getting a UTI. Broken boundaries and rage can definitely relate to how the bladder is pissed off. The bladder doesn't want to deal with it, or other types of infections that affect the women's reproductive system, even ovarian issues and ways that we clog our creativity and our manifestation because of the huge process and huge output of creativity and manifestation that is involved with sex. And so I do feel like this Saturn energy came into my life and was like, hey, if you're not going to make the right decisions, we're going to make it a non decision for you. This is going to be something that you don't want to engage with right now. And so rewriting and rewiring this, I believe that in the process of moving into Aquarius, a lot of these cycles are going to be broken. It's focusing more on individual thinking and radical thought. And Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn, but Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. And Uranus, if Saturn is telling you, you need to go to class, you need to show up for it, Uranus is going to tell you to skip class. Uranus is going to tell you that you are going to learn more through radical life experiences and meditation. It's going to be a radical transformation of how we look at things. In the last couple of years, we've fluctuated in and out of Pluto and Aquarius, back to Pluto and Capricorn. So I believe last year we only spent 3 months in Pluto and Aquarius. And then this year, between January and September, we were in Pluto and Aquarius. And I believe that at this time, for me, the healing process was very interesting in that the healing process of Capricorn is very heavy. It's an earth sign, the body, movement, and the somatic energy. And there may be some really deep ancestral patterns that are being held in the body that are wanting to be released with the advent of Pluto and Aquarius. And I could feel this. I started working with a woman who does allergy elimination technique, NAET. However, she has a sort of spiritual spin on things, as she could see or feel or muscle test for when we have past lives and we have allergies to emotions that we felt in these past lives. And it reminds me that food, that nutrition is energy and information. And when we put that information in our body, we're working through a program. And it's all about upgrading the program that we have to serve our highest good in this timeline. The program, the old program, may have said, hey, Jill, for example, let's say I had turkey and my parents were fighting and it was a horrible day and I was sad. My brother was being mean to me. And let's say I had this food and my nervous system took it in and said, we don't want to experience this again. And so, what I learned how to do through her, and it was a very energetic and almost like a rewiring of the program, of the software that we have in place to implement this upgrade. And in this upgrade, we can transcend that feeling that was unprocessed and be able to move beyond that and to tell the system, I know that you feel this feeling and that you're associating with this, but now we're going to rewire it. We're going to acknowledge our own sovereignty in our system, that we were able to move beyond that and transcend it. And she actually taught me how to do this work, which was such an incredible gift. As I moved through these things, I could feel myself start to sift through the programs and the data that were no longer applicable to me and start to clear them. And I believe now that I can understand this journey, that the journey through Aquarius began to make this possible, because we're shifting from the body, where the body holds disease, and the body and this sense that we are ill if we don't go to the doctor and we do these specific routine checkups. But actually, the programs that are existing in the nervous system are possible to be rewired. And we can start to empower ourselves through those processes in order to get better. And I had some amazing revelations too during my trip, visiting my mom, about how much criticism that I felt. And I know that it's no fault of hers. This comes from her own criticism of herself. And to honor and witness that, I'm bringing awareness to that as I am speaking up and speaking my truth. I don't know that I was always able to do this, to speak my truth about what wasn't working for me. But I do believe that I came into this world. Pluto was in the third house when at my time of birth, which is the house of communication, that I came into this world to say things that were uncomfortable, that people would tell me things that they haven't told anybody else, that I would hold this communication, this vibration, as the most important, or one of the most important of my gifts that I can bring into this world. And this was very clear to me when I went to my brother's wedding. And it was a beautiful wedding. It was a very simple wedding. The first night that I got there, I hadn't seen my parents since the pandemic. It was 2022. I hadn't seen my whole family. And I saw my sister, and my sister was communicating in the style that she communicates with. And it's always been pretty expressive, both my siblings. My brother has this really strong, powerful communication. You look at him and you say, oh, yes, you actually are in a courtroom, and that's where you operate. And that's necessary for that role. And I saw this little me that was like, how the hell am I going to get through to this? I'm not going to speak louder. I'm not going to just draw more attention to myself in that way. I'm not going to fight fire with fire. And what I saw myself doing is I wanted to sing a song. Me and my partner at the time, we sang Dust in the Wind for my brother's wedding because I thought it was very sentimental and very funny to bring that in. And, it's about death. But, that's life. Is anything is death. A wedding is a death of the part of you that isn't married, that isn't there anymore. Now you're for life committed to this other person. And yeah, having children can definitely be a death of the person that you were before. And so in celebration of that, I brought a song, and I just started to see in my life this unfolding of, I can't communicate harder. I need to communicate in a way that draws people in with this beauty, with this frequency, with this creativity. And I gained a lot of more of my perspective and insightfulness, or so I've heard as a kid, because I only had one little tiny window to say something and to get it in. So I had this experience with my family where I really became aware of how these patterns of communication and this pattern of criticism and how my own critic was playing into this, was creating this autoimmunity and this rejection of so many foods. I used to have a list. I made a list of the foods that I could eat. I was muscle testing myself to make sure I wasn't consuming anything that my body would reject. And a lot of it was criticism, removing that criticism from my body. Actually, criticism messes with our stomach acid, keeps us from fully digesting our food.
And they recently did this study with rats where they fed rats food that had high cholesterol in them. And they tested both groups. And the group that was just lovingly and nurturingly fed this food did not have a spike in the compounds for cholesterol. So this was a very important breakthrough for me to experience as I move through this new timeline and this new space. And so as I moved through my journey, I had this incredible trip and had such incredible time in South Lake Tahoe singing with my friends and my community. And I had the most incredible time in Grass Valley, spending time with this family and just seeing what this newer generation of kids, how they were being parented, how much love that I felt in their presence, how fun these kids were, and just getting to spend some amazing time in nature. And the last night that I spent in California, I spent on Mount Shasta at around 6,000 feet and just listening to nature, talking to the trees. I had this tree that I spoke to, that spoke to me rather. I don't really speak to the trees, I just let them speak. And it was like this subalpine fir, I believe. And just being present with the tree, it helped me process what I was going through, the fear that I was going through. It helped me just to stay the course and spoke to me in these ways. It was showing me the sap on the tree. It was showing me what was unfolding for me was just in divine timing and not to be afraid of the path ahead. And so, in all of this beauty and all of this glory, I took this incredible trip and it was very short, but I wanted to experience Pluto's cavern again. And so I want to bring you to Pluto's cavern for this journey of endings, of ending the karmic duties and the path that we've moved through. I feel like I've unraveled so many timelines during this process of Pluto and Capricorn. I feel that there's been so much in my physical body, so much data that I've unraveled about past timelines and things that I'm ready to move into. So I can clear and clean my slate and be ready to move into a place of more openness and more beauty, more of a revolution, more of a renaissance. And so here is the entrance into Pluto's cavern.
I'm walking to Pluto's cave. I realized how potent this is. And I remembered Pluto's cave. This is where the transformation is happening in the outer planet. And the transformation from the dominant masculine father paradigm into like this place of liberation and freedom. To have a little ceremony, the portals, talk to Pluto, and ask for the release and the death of any parts of myself that are still operating under this program. Love is the program, actually.
This cavern is a little north of Mount Shasta. And as you get there, it's just this dry desert. You even see tumbleweeds going down the road, just so picturesque. And you have to get a little map on your phone going to find the right path to the cavern from the parking area. And really, not a lot of people were there. I believe I was the only one out there at the time. And you can hear there's keys and shakers jingling in my bag that I brought in for micro ceremony. And I got a little tumble. I don't remember where I cut myself, but I got a little blood donation from Pluto, from her. And I just finding my way into the mouth of the cavern. There was a lot of different places where you could go and you could get into a darker area, but eventually it goes into this single channel that goes all the way into the mountain. And the first time that I went in there with a partner at the time. And there was a little sign as we got deep into the cave that said rock lowering. And for him, it was like, that's it. I'm not going underneath that rock. And I did go to the other side of that, and I trusted that that was an initiation and a test. But the initiation actually is you get deep into the cave and you scream and you ask for permission to enter Panther Meadows, which is on Mount Shasta. And you listen for the answer. And, it was really creepy. I would be just doing a little bit of channeling or singing in the dark, and I would hear a scream. He would say, a bat just flew right by my ear. It's a little bit creepy, and it's interesting how we feel in those darker places, what comes up for us. For me, I brought in the light. I felt very restorative, and I felt like connecting with nature, connecting with these parts. So we're going to wrap up the episode. I'm going to play the transmission that I received from the cavern. But before we do that, let's look at what's going on as Pluto moves into Aquarius. According to Stephen Forrest, deep in my cells and yours is an instinct that connects our well-being with membership in the tribe. Aquarian genius involves overcoming that instinct. To innovate truly, one must break existing rules and accept censure and possible banishment. All geniuses are misunderstood. That's built into the definition of the word. To succeed, one must develop a thick skin regarding our basic need for approval. To hold a truth with which everyone else agrees is easy. To hold one against the tide of popular assumptions is vastly more arduous. How does the psyche adapt? There are healthy answers, or all geniuses would be mad, as well as misunderstood, and they are not. But there is also an easy, unhealthy answer: to freeze the heart, to become cold, indifferent, and emotionally disassociated, simply to give up caring about people and about one's own humanity. Interesting that comes up with AI, that AI has all the cerebral components, has all the knowledge, but none of the heart, none of the emotion. More on this. Pluto in Aquarius represents the apogee of human intellectual freedom. It is a feast of create thought, a liberation from the shackles of habit, and an escape from the tyrannies of tradition. Were it not a part of life, an eternal sleepiness would seep into the bones of humankind. And I believe that we're here to break the cycle. We're here to shake things up. We're here to move out of the phase of pushing the boulder up the hill. And evidence to that is that the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the Revolutionary War, the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, as well as Enlightenment, as well as geniuses like Mozart. And so moving into a compassionate look at this and how more is going to be revealed about our use of technology, about our connection to AI and the computers, and how we can rewire our brains for healing and for the benefit of the collective, as well as deeply, deeply rewire the systems that have come in place that have created oppression. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you enjoy the transmission from the cave. I love you all, and I'm looking forward to connecting on the other side of this. Aquarius represents the collective. And for me, this is a really beautiful way for me to connect with you. Please share this with your friends, and I will see you in the next episode.
Archangel, light warrior, sending alchemical messages to the soul. She rides the serpent, opening her wingspan, ready to embrace all that is in the ethers, drinking the sweet nectar of love. She transforms. She transmutes all time and space in a place where she can remember the light within. Close your eyes and feel the light coming through all of your cells. Remember the inner voice, the remembering of times that come and go. And remember that you are at the center of the beautiful spiral of space and time, that in all times and places, you are home in your cell, in your alchemical container that you carry with you as you produce dimethyltryptamine to bring the glow of love into everything and everyone that you touch and see and feel. Let this glow resonate deeply within your soul. Let it transmute the battles, the cages, the constraints, the boundaries of existence, and let yourself drop in to ride the serpent with an open wingspan into eternity.